everyone, and welcome to another episode of GodSaw's Turnbuckle, the wrestling video podcast I'm running on my youtube.com/UC Campbell. We're looking to change the name of that here down the line, but that's going to have to hold off for a little bit. But we're not here to talk about that in any way, shape, or form. This is GodSaw's Turnbuckle. We talk about wrestling. And this one's actually going to be a very... a more special one in the aspect that this week, and I forgot to even mention this in my weekend preview, that this week started the Mae Young Classic, the 32 all-women's tournament done on the WWE Network. It was filmed down in Full Sail, I believe, this came out August 28th, so it would have been in July, so about a month and a half beforehand. That most of these matches, if not all of these matches, have been taped during that time frame, and they released the first 4 episodes this week. They're going to release the next 4 episodes next week. Now, there's going to be a few aspects that I talk about in this one. It's not just going to be about the wrestling matches themselves, though I will talk about them down the line, but it's also going to be about production and how did the commentary team do. And how did I feel about the matches overall? How did I feel at the end of each episode? So let's get right into it with the production. This is a typical WWE production, even with the Full Sail area. So you expect higher quality, and the video packages that they do show were very well produced, very well done, very well put together in the terms of each of the promos that they put towards everybody, and allowing each person to kind of tell their story a little bit for maybe a minute or 2 minutes or in that sense of it. So all of that was very well done. The one thing I did notice, and this is probably because of this one's probably because of the limited time frame that some of these guys had for all of this portion of it. The music was so-so. The music that was chosen was so-so. It wasn't all that great. I wouldn't say it was all horrible, but it wasn't all that great to begin with. And you kind of didn't get a feel for some of the people's characters based off of their entrance music. Usually, if you get, you could tell someone's character by their entrance music and everything in that sense. So a lot of this was actually very basic, with the exception of like Kairi Sane and a couple of others to go along with it. You could kind of tell where they were going with all of that in the terms of their music. Now, in the terms of their Titantrons, this again, I think this was based off of their limited time that they had to get things put together in that sense, because everyone's Titantron was essentially the same. It was kind of a basic font with like a little bit of a flip towards the back. It wasn't all that impressive, and everybody was kind of in the same color, and there was no real variance to it. Again, I feel like they did this almost on a limited time basis with everything else that they were doing, and didn't necessarily get around to it. And those are like in the small little aspects of the production that I had noticed. Those are the kind of thing. Those 2 last points were kind of the points that I was kind of like they were a little wishy-washy. You could kind of tell that they didn't have a lot of time to get some things together, and you could definitely tell with some of the music and some of those and all of the Titantrons and everything that go along with that. Now, like I had said before, things that were really good and really well done were the video packages for each of the wrestlers beforehand. Everybody kind of got their own little time, talk about themselves, try to get people to know who they are. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cough today. But with that, like I said, with that was kind of what they did with the Cruiserweight Classic, what they did with the UK tournament, and they did that exactly the same here. And that was how, you kind of got a grasp of what each person was doing, regardless of how they're based off of language and everything in that sense. You could kind of grasp where each person was coming from, and kind of from the aspect of what kind of character they were playing, whether it be heel or face or anything in that sense. I did make note of this for one, because during the first episode, everybody would do they would do the traditional handshake before each match. This is, again, just like the Cruiserweight Classic in that sense. I don't... With the UK tournament, I don't remember them doing a lot of handshakes before matches. They might have done that as well inside of there. But during the first episode, like Shayna Baszler was like the only one who did not do the handshake at the beginning of the match. So I made a note of that, and then like through the next 3 episodes, you could tell the heels, and because every single one of them, not one of them would do a handshake in any way, shape, or form. You got probably about another 6 or 7, if not a little bit more, that would refuse the handshake at the beginning of the match. In that sense of everything. So that was another thing of note. You're asking who were the heels, who were the faces, and everything to go along with that. Now, commentary-wise, getting away from what the production was, commentary-wise, JR and Lita. Yeah, you know what? Honestly, it wasn't. It could have been a lot worse. We've seen a lot of Lita's commentary, everything in that sense. We know how JR is. We know JR in that sense. He's extremely knowledgeable, knows the holds, knows everything. Lita, I thought, came off quite well. I wouldn't say she was like top notch or anything in that sense, but she came off quite well and showed knowledge during the entire during each of the episodes of each of the wrestlers, each of the holds. And what they were going for and what they were doing and everything in that sense, and even throwing stories about people they had faced in the past that maybe in the tournament, everything in that sense. So you got that from both JR and Lita. I thought this came off quite well. This is probably Lita's best commentary in her time, and that's... Well, in the sense of it, if you've listened to her commentary in the past, it's not all that. It's not good at all. But it came off a little bit better, and you could kind of just tell she was into each match. She was into getting people over, everything in that sense. And like I said, did an overall decent job. I wouldn't say she did a spectacular job, but she did a good enough job in this sense of getting everything across that they needed to do during the matches. So commentary was actually quite good. I was a little bit skeptical about that one because we had heard how JR was kind of during the U.S. and New Japan, the U.S. stuff for the New Japan Pro Wrestling TV shows where you didn't know names, everything in this sense. There was no mishaps on names or anything to go along with that. They were quite knowledgeable of each person. It was like they had done research going into each match to get somebody over in some way, shape, or form. So this brings us to the matches themselves. To a lot of the matches themselves. So you have 4 episodes, 16 matches to go really go through. And I'll go off and basically say I didn't dislike any of the matches. I thought each of them were at least decent for the most part. Now, one thing that is to make note is that they did have a 15-minute time limit on each and every single one of the matches. So it was going to be kind of like a bang, 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 bang. You weren't going to get a long match really going through most of them. But you got some really good matches in there. As a matter of fact, this also goes back into their production. Each episode ends on a good match. Like a really good match, highly competitive, everything in that sense. You could tell it was kind of a main event for that episode, and designed to go along that way. Each of the main events for each episode, so you get about 4 matches per episode, was Abby Lath versus Jazzy Gabbert, and that was a really good match. Very enjoyable match. From both sides. Abby goes over by pinfall with kind of like Mae Young's type roll up that she had done, so kind of a play off of a play off of being in the Mae Young Classic, everything in that sense. Jazzy looked really good in this match as well. Like the crowd really got into that particular match. In general, you could tell the crowd was more into that one, maybe knowing them or just kind of being impressed by some of the people that were in there, because you could tell that for some matches they didn't necessarily know who was there, and maybe be the first time that they had seen any of them. And then for the second episode, I'm going to just go through the main events for each one here. The second episode was Sarah Logan, aka Crazy Mary Dobson, going up against Mia Yim. This was another good match right here. This is another really good match from both sides, and both of them kind of played off of each other and made each other look good inside of this match. Good near falls. Mia Yim going over with a pinfall, but also using the Eat the Feet from one of her idols, Gail Kim. So you kind of get a Gail Kim reference in there. They actually make mention of Gail Kim during this particular match as well. And the third episode, the main event for that one was Santana Garrett going up against Piper Niven. This was a really good match. Both of these, you got a couple of these matches where you were getting kind of the taller and more built woman versus the smaller woman in this one. And you kind of got this in this match, but they told this story really well. And like I said, you got this in a couple of other matches throughout the entire time, but this one was really well done, very fast paced from both sides, with Piper Niven going over with a senton going, and then picked her up into a almost Rikishi driver, but turned more into a Michinoku driver to finish off Santana Garrett in that match. So again, really good match from both of them, and like I said, for the most part, you were not. I didn't really find a bad match. The closest thing I had to a bad match before I get into that, though, we'll go into the fourth episode's main event, which was Tessa Blanchard going up against Kairi Sane. For me, this is the first time I've seen Kairi Sane, or Kairi Hojo. In this sense, I've seen gifs of the elbow and everything in that sense, but this was even though both of these women are really good and probably should have been placed as a further down the line match in there, this is a very good first impression for Kairi Sane. For a lot of people who have never seen her, we've seen Tessa Blanchard before in that sense, but for people who haven't been able to see Kairi Sane, Kairi Hojo, in any way outside of gift form or anything in that sense, this was a very good match. Very fast paced, very quick to getting to everything that they were wanting to get in there, but also without making it just feel like this is a spot. It wasn't like that at all. They were telling themselves a story throughout the entire match that go along with it. Ending with Kairi Sane teasing the elbow for quite a bit of time, and then eventually hitting that her elbow drop, which I forget the name that they gave it. I forget the name that they gave it and everything in that sense, but it looks amazing. It's great. Can't wait to see it more often. So it seems like they're going to let her keep the elbow drop going throughout everything. So, like I said before, I didn't really find a match that I would particularly say bad. The match that I would probably say was close to the worst was probably the Rachel Evers Marty Bell match, but then again, I've never been a big fan of Marty Bell to begin with. I just don't think she's all that good in the ring. She has good character, good facials, everything in that sense. But that was probably the worst match of the set. Shayna Baszler went up against Zeta. This was designed to be a quick match, almost kind of like Shayna toying with Zeta throughout the entire match, and eventually setting up for a rear naked choke submission, which, by the way, was a very she got into it in a very different, in a different way you typically don't see it happen. She went into the rear naked choke via a vertical suplex. So she got Zeta up in like a vertical suplex motion, and then dropped her right into a rear naked choke to get the quick tap out. It was a quick match that kind of made her come off as dominant, and it'll be interesting to watch what kind of match that her and Mia Yim have for the second round matches. That will be an interesting one to watch to see if they keep Shayna Baszler in this dominant-like role, or are they going to have a little bit more of a competitive match, considering everything with Mia Yim and everything in that sense? Like, to me, that match should be probably a more competitive match, and we'll see how that one goes off, because I believe that match will release on Monday. Yeah, that match will release on Monday because it's a second round match, and they're releasing, I think, 4 new episodes. Which I think entail the 2 episodes of the second round, quarterfinals, and then the semifinals for the last one to go along with that. So that was basically how they were kind of treating Shayna Baszler throughout the time. They obviously got Ronda Rousey and the other horsewomen from MMA be at ringside for that one, so you're probably going to see that throughout the entire time as well. And we hear there's like something that happens, maybe not like physical altercation, but like a stare down between the horsewomen of MMA and the horsewomen of WWE in the terms of that. So that will be an interesting one to see how that ends out actually playing out. Other people I was kind of impressed with. And a lot of this was in the first episode. The first match was Kaylee Ray going up against Princess Suhue. Suhue? I probably butchered that name. But Princess Suhue. And this match looked extremely impressive. Good luchador areas shown throughout this match. Kaylee Ray also looked good. Like I said, this was like the first match of the first episode. It was like, bang, good match. Good match right off the bat, in that sense of it. Princess Suhue went over in this match. I've seen Kaylee Ray before, but I'd never seen Princess Suhue. But they have her go over in this match, where I think a lot of people would have thought Kaylee Ray was going over in this one, but they had her go over to continue on in that particular match. So she went over by tap out. Now, what was it? I'm going to go through all these episodes here, because I have the notes right in front of me. We had a tap-out victory. We had 2 tap-out victories in the first episode, a tap-out victory in the second episode, which was Mercedes Martinez going up against Zali. I'm going to butcher these names so badly. I'm butchering the names. But Zhao... This was actually her first match, at least televised. I don't know if it was actually her first match in general. And to be honest with you, she came off pretty good. She kind of came up with a character for herself. She played to her background in martial arts and kung fu and everything in that sense. And it worked out for her. It made her more comfortable in the ring and made that match actually fairly good in that sense of everything. So that was another person that was like, okay, that one came off pretty good in that sense. Also, and they're telling the story of Serena Deeb. Serena Deeb coming back in. If you had seen her before, they're kind of telling the story of her, much like they had done with Brian Kendrick during the Cruiserweight Classic, that they had been in the WWE before, but they squandered their chance, and this is kind of their chance at a little bit of redemption in that one. And she went up against Vanessa Bourne in the first round, and it was again, it was a good match. Serena Deeb going over by pinfall in that match. But overall, pretty good match here. So I've kind of gone through the first 2 episodes. So let's go through the third episode. We also had, for people that are more into everything, this third episode kind of had more of a what was the word I'm going for here? More of a noticeable independent scene, since you had Toni Storm in her match with Aisha Redman, I think it was. Yeah. But that was also a pretty good match. That was a decent enough match. This is the first time I've seen Toni Storm. I've heard about her, but never seen her. She does have quite a different quite a different look. She almost what is it? It's almost steampunkish to a certain degree, but it's not. She has the little top hat on and everything for that one, and you can tell that with a lot of these women. They kind of had something either in the terms of their colors, their color scheme, or their outfits in general. That it's like, okay, you can kind of tell who they are and everything that they play into their backgrounds, and you saw that in this one. You saw that in most of the people you had seen. But you also had Dakota Kai, and I also like how they make mention to each of these women being like veterans of the ring in the terms of the independence, everything in that sense. She went up against Kavita David. Yeah, I think that's how it was. She was the first woman of India to get into the wrestling, into like WWE or the wrestling ring in general. In that sense, that was a pretty good match. It kind of told a story of of the smaller versus taller, like the shorter versus taller person in this one, with Dakota Kai going over with her running boot in the corner. Decent. I thought it was a decent enough match, and they told the story quite well of David being the one kind of overpowering her, and Dakota having to overcome that in the end. You also had Sage Beckett going up against Bianca Belair. We had seen Bianca on. Actually, I think the first time I remember seeing her was actually on WWE's YouTube. She had like a qualifying match with Aaliyah for the Mae Young Classic. That was a pretty decent match with Bianca Belair going over. She's gonna have to face up against Kairi Sane in the second round. It'll be interesting to see how that match plays off. In the fourth episode, you had Renee Michelle going up against Candice LeRae. I do like the aspect that Candice LeRae brings up the whole thing about her husband being Johnny Gargano. They even have him in the crowd, everything in that sense. And they do show people in the crowd throughout the entire time. Like you had Rock's family and Nia Jax. You saw Alexa Bliss. Shinsuke Nakamura shows up in the fourth episode. And you also had Charlotte Flair. And I believe Becky was in there as well. And you also had like Beth Phoenix and Natalya. You saw a bunch of people throughout that entire time. The Candice LeRae match, I thought was a decent enough match. Again, it came off decent enough. Renee Michelle, you could, and this is kind of one of those things that if there's any kind of small gripe, you could tell like which people were really experienced in the ring and which people were kind of novices inside the ring. You could tell that in each of these matches, but like I said, I didn't really find a bad match in any of these episodes. Now, were they up to the quality of the Cruiserweight Classic or anything in that sense? Probably not, but again, you didn't really find a bad match in any of these. And then up next, you had you had Lacey Evans going up against Tayana Kanadi. Okay, first of all, this Tayana is probably another person to look out for at some point in time. Especially if she's gonna play a heel at most times, because you looked, she went with she had like a judo background, everything in that sense, like a martial arts and judo background. It even comes out in the gi right before the match and everything in that sense, before she has her match with Lacey Evans. But also, if she plays a heel, she has perpetual just mean face throughout the entire time. If she was to play heel at any given point, she plays it up to a T perfectly each time around. And they did have Lacey Evans go over in that one, which this match I thought was also quite decent. Both of them worked well together inside of the ring. The ending came with a kind of a cradle reverse, almost like a reverse pile driver. I forget the name of it. It is the move where it's almost like a reverse pile driver, but you sit down into like a roll up position for that. So that's how that match ended. And again, I thought it was a pretty decent match. And right before the Kairi Sane match, you had Nicole Savai and Rihanna Gonzalez. Oh yeah, that was the thing about Nicole. That was the thing about Nicole here. They had talked about her. Now they may mention to her as being submission based throughout most of the time, but they also called her the Queen of the Suplexes, and they put her in there with somebody she really couldn't suplex. Or you couldn't just throw her around. It almost felt like she should have been in the ring with somebody who was a little bit smaller or something in that sense to kind of emphasize that Queen of the Suplexes. And now maybe she'll get to do that more in the second round, because she did go over by tap out in what was an okay match. Nothing spectacular, but nothing really bad about it either. So, with that being said, that's pretty much everything. That's pretty much all the matches to go through in that one. Like I said, the production of the show I thought was really well done. And like I said, there was not really a bad match. So you didn't really have like a bunch of crazy spots or anything in that sense. Though you had some good back and forth during some of the matches, like the Kaylee Ray and Princess Sasue matches. Also with Abby Lath and Jazzy Gabert. The Mia Yim Sarah Logan match had some good back and forth in it as well. To go along with it, a bunch of these matches had some good back and forth moments and some very tense moments of near falls, everything in that sense. The stuff that Santana Garrett and Piper Niven did, I thought was really good. Again, they had a good back and forth going in there, and again, good teases of even having Santana go over Piper, and also moments where it looked like Santana was down and out, but she gets out of the situation and everything in that sense. Same with the Kairi Sane and Tessa Blanchard match. You kind of got that feel. It's like, okay, both these two are working really well together. You had one spot where it looked like Kairi was going to the second rope to do like a missile drop kick or something like that, or maybe potentially going to the top rope to do something, but Tessa kicks her legs out. She gets caught up in the second ropes, and then Tessa Blanchard does a code breaker to her off the ropes. It was really good looking in that sense of it. So you had some pretty decent spots in there. Like I said, nothing overly crazy, but the elbow drop from Kairi Sane looks amazing. It really does. I know they have a name for it. I forget it off the top of my head. I'll make sure to remember it for next time around in that sense. But that is pretty much everything I had through the Mae Young Classic. I will watch the other 4 episodes next week when they air and when they come out. They should release Monday, if not Tuesday, in that sense. And I will try to get another review out by the weekend, because they will be having the finals on the 12th. On Tuesday, the 12th, I believe. It's like right after SmackDown or something like that, in that sense. So, with that being said, everybody, I hope you guys enjoyed this overview and review of the Mae Young Classic for the first round. I thank you guys for watching, and have a great rest of your day.